Good afternoon. Here we have another very special guest. It's a woman of outstanding achievement, Paula Bolla-Sorrentino. Paula has a different career, and today she will talk about her different stages of her career. Paula currently is a director of operation in 3 outstanding Italian restaurants in New York City: Il Gattopardo, the Leopard, and Mozzarella Vino. Paula, as you may hear the name, it's originally from Brazil, of Italian descent. Paula, you were born, first of all, thank you for accepting the invitation.
My pleasure.
And you were born in Porto Alegre from Italian parents.
That is correct.
And then you decided at the age of 17 to leave Porto Alegre and move to Italy for your first career. Please tell us these years. How did you come with decision and where you end up?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. Well, a long story short, of course, I'm from Brazil, as you mentioned, a daughter of immigrants. My father is from Italy, from Verona. He moved to Brazil with his family after the Second War. And so many Italian immigrants moved to south of Brazil and to Argentina.
Correct.
And he ended up married the girl of his dreams in Brazil, a nice Brazilian girl, also with Italian background. So I'm 3/4 Italian, but I was born and grew up in Brazil until the age of 17. When I was 17, I was going to college, entering college for public relations. I attended 1 semester, and then it came the opportunity to participate in a contest, in a beauty contest.
Here we are, okay.
Which I was not expecting to, move ahead, but I entered that. I was already doing some modeling in my town for small fashion houses, local stores. But then with that contest, I won in my state. And then I went to the national and I took the 2nd place. And with that, I got a nice contract with Elite Models. And that contract then leads to the career as a model, which I stayed in the fashion industry for 10 years.
And that was basically the second part, Milano. Milano came basically, you spent several years there as a model, and then you went to other locations. Tell us this year as an elite model.
Yes.
And how was the work?
Yes. My main goal since the beginning was to travel. To travel and to meet people, incredible people, learn the cultures, and look at the background of the fashion industry. Of course, I love the catwalks, I love the editorial, the magazines, but I was always very interested in the thought behind the fashion. So when I moved to Italy, for instance, I started to work in ateliers with Gianfranco Ferré, with Armani, Max Mara, and working on their ateliers, you can spend time with the designers and with their creative process. And I was always intrigued about the creative process behind of what you see. So it's like, it's like the theater. What goes behind, what goes on behind the curtains? So I've worked in Milan, as you mentioned. I stayed there for 3 years, in and out. In Paris, in Germany, and then in Japan for quite a few time in Japan, for a Chanel tour in Japan, which was wonderful because we got to travel for many cities in Japan, touring with the Chanel. And it was always a wonderful experience.
And then New York, how do you end up in New York City, where we are now, basically?
Yes, in New York City, after all these years, basically I was traveling for about 8 years. Then I decided to come to New York to try the market here. I didn't want to come to New York at first because I didn't feel that I was prepared. And I always had that fascination about New York. And I thought to myself that one day I will go to New York and I'm sure I'm going to fall in love. And sure enough, I came to New York. And I decided to stay because I was amazed with the city. I fell in love with the city, with the people, with its energy. And I decided to stay and move on with my life. Then I entered college here.
What year was when you moved here?
The year was 97, I believe.
1997.
Yes.
This is a question I ask to every guest we have. How was New York in 1997? We are at the beginning of this global expansion of New York, right?
Yes.
So how did you experience that time compared to your background?
Yes, yes. When I came here, the first thing that caught my eye, and it was the energy that was coming from the street and from the people, and I think that's a characteristic of the city. But it was even more pungent when I first came here. So that was the first thing, and the many language that you hear all over, and the foods that you're exposed.
The food.
The food,
That's
exactly.
Important.
Very important detail in my life.
The food changed your life. Then you decide to go to the FIT, to enroll FIT,
yes.
which is a very renowned school for Fashion Institute of Technology,
yes.
which combines fashion and technology. So how was your approach, your years at the FIT?
Yes, I attended 5 years at FIT. I graduated with fine arts. In the major of graphic design.
Wow.
Graphic design. I always loved the art direction. So I thought with the graphic design and the art direction, I could use my sense of aesthetics in many fields. And indeed, I end up in the hospitality, and I still use the same skills that I've learned.
Before going to the... You finish FIT?
I finished
but,
FIT.
But, short in money, what happened, basically?
Well,
we have to say that.
Of course. So, right in the beginning of college, of course, you have to pay your tuition, right?
Well, we know
and
that.
What a better industry to meet people and pay your tuition than the restaurant industry. So, I had a common friend that worked at the MoMA, Sete MoMA. Oh, wow. At the restaurant at the Museum of Modern Art. And for me to work at MoMA was a dream come true. Of course, I've been exposed to all the artists and graphic design. So I went to visit this friend, and I was offered the job on spot. So I started to work at the restaurant as a hostess at the front desk. And with that income, it helped me pay my tuition.
Wonderful. Before going to the next step, so basically, how was your experience at the MoMA, which is basically a dream job for every young girl, young artist? So basically, tell us how the MoMA environment is a worldwide renowned institution.
Basically. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the most magic things that I experienced at MoMA was to visit MoMA off public hours. So every day I was going to work, and it was closed for the public, so I was wandering around the galleries. And of course, you can imagine being a student at FIT and have the luxury of accessing an institution like MoMA and being alone in the galleries. For me was wonderful, and I got to meet many of the artists. I remember when the Jackson Pollock exhibition was going on, it blew my mind. It was something out of this world for me, and to experience all that and then go back and study graphic design was an unbelievable experience.
Let's do a step back.
Yeah.
You were doing this fantastic experience. Your parents in Brazil, which was their mood, my daughter is in New York.
Well, by the time that I was here, I had already been out of the house for many years. I traveled the world. So they learned to trust my sense of responsibility, right? Okay. When I first left home, of course, I was 17, and I will never forget, because with me there were another 3-4 girls going to the final of the beauty contest in São Paulo, and they had these little luggages. And when we got to the airport, my father looked at those luggage, and they looked at my luggage. It was like 4 or 5 luggages, and he asked me, why are you taking so much things? You know, you're going to stay just 1 week.
Here we are.
And I told them that this is it. I'm going to try to pursue my dreams, and I'm hoping, that, many doors will open.
Wonderful, and never regret that.
Never regret, never
Okay.
look back. And
Great.
believe me, there is nothing wrong with, Porto Alegre is a lovely town. I was going to college, I was perfectly happy there, but I always felt that was something else out there for me.
Wonderful, and that is important. How did you perceive there was something out there for you? Did you get any sign? Did anybody said something special to you, different to you, or?
Well, my sister, I have a sister 5 years older.
Mm-hmm.
She also took this turn of traveling. So I remember when I was a teenager, she was about 18, 19, and she decided to go around the world. So she went to live in London, and then in Portugal, and then literally she went around the world. And for me, that idea, it served as a mentor to go travel.
So somehow she inspired you. She was sort of a
Absolutely,
mentor.
and she still inspires me. She's a wonderful person.
Great, but from the MoMA, you didn't go far away because you moved across the street.
Yes.
Across the street where you basically became a partner with your loved husband, Gianfranco, and you decide to change again from fine arts to hospitality. How this transaction happened?
Well, MoMA went through a big renovation, and then we started to look for a space around MoMA, of course, to have our own restaurant. At that time, I was working as a hostess, as I mentioned, at Sete MoMA.
But you already engaged
And Gianfranco, yes, and Gianfranco was one of the partners, managing partner at Sete MoMA, and we decided that we want to open a restaurant on our own. So we started to look, and we decided to stay on 54, and an opportunity came across the street, right across the street in this old townhouse, and we opened the first Il Gattopardo in 2001.
Which I remember, was not only 2001, was a very special day.
Yes.
So please tell us that very great day for you, but for
very
many
traumatic
tragic day.
Very traumatic week in the history, not only of New York, but this nation. Our opening date of Gattopardo was our wedding, which was who gets married and open a restaurant in the same day? But anyway, that was set to be September 15, 2001. So 4 days before, we all know what happened on 9/11. So all the plans, of course, were canceled. To open the restaurant was very difficult. New York was under a state of shock. Our wedding was canceled. My parents, Gianfranco's families, everybody coming from Brazil or Italy were trapped in the airport. So we decided to cancel our opening of the restaurant and our wedding on that day. We were also in shock. We used to live downtown, and I could never, ever forget what happened. However, few days after, we look at each other, and we decided that we will open the restaurant and we will get married because life must go on.
Right, so you hold on strong. But how
Yes.
were those few days? Because
Yes.
the city, the country and the world were under shock.
Shock, absolutely.
And what made you believe that you would succeed, and you did at the end? So,
yes, we had a strong sense and a feeling that New York will always rebirth. It will always get stronger. And on that moment, it was very, very difficult to believe in any dreams. But we believed, and we moved ahead. And we always moved ahead from any of the circumstances. Can be the 9/11, can be the crash on 28, that it was terrible, and the pandemic. And we always believed that New York would be stronger than ever. So we decided to move ahead and open the restaurant and get married. Got married at home. We opened the restaurant 3 days after. But for the first good 4 to 6 months, it was really tough. It was really, really tough. Nobody was walking on the streets. There were no customers. Deliverers and staff was very difficult. So it was really challenging.
So Paula, you went through to these 3 very hard, tragic moments: 2001, 2008, the pandemic of 2020.
Yes.
And always New York came back. Or we hope after the pandemic we'll be back. There is any common trait in these 3 moments? How do you perceive? You are on the front of the desk, front of the house. How do you perceive the mood of these people, or the people in these 3 different moments of New York life?
Well, they are very different events, right? 9/11 caught us all by surprise. So we're in a state of shock. But nevertheless, looking in retrospective, it was a fairly quick state of shock. Because after a few months, the city started to move again, right? The 2008 was a financial crisis. So we saw people, their mood was still okay, let's say, to go out, but then their wallets were empty. But this time, the pandemic caught us by surprise as well, but it's taking so much longer to recover from it. So much longer.
Did you have any moment of despair in these 3 moments? Especially now that now we are entering almost the 2 years and a half.
Yes. Despair, I wouldn't say despair, but there are definitely very difficult moments. One of the most difficult moments that comes to my mind, it was in the week of the March 20th, 2020, when we all learned that we had to close operations. So we closed the 3 restaurants, which were doing very well, and we also have a catering division, which was doing very well. And we had to have a general meeting with over 160 employees, and we had to shut down, and we terminated our employees. We kept their health insurance, their benefits, but basically we had to communicate that the company was shutting down for a time that we didn't know at that time. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 4 weeks. It ended up being 6 months. So that was really, really hard to do.
Paula, you started with your partner and husband Gianfranco 1 restaurant, then came the 2nd one, then the 3rd one, then the catering. So how did you why did you decide to expand? Was a necessity? Was because you really built a successful business? And which is the quality? I have 2 questions. The quality that make you doing so well, opening the 2nd and the 3rd restaurant?
I think it's a combination. Sometimes opportunities knocked our door, and we accept it as it is, or we try to modify it. We always had a fascination about landmark buildings and art, and that's what I think is the thread between our operations, because we've met at Sette MoMA, at the Museum of Modern Art, and then we moved and we had Gattopardo. Now Gattopardo lives in the townhouse of the Rockefeller townhouse, so it's a landmark site of New York City. And then when the Leopard came on board, it was a space, it's an unbelievable space. It's located at the former Café des Artistes, which was closed for a couple of years when the Langs approached us to take over. So, this background in art and design also translate in the restaurant.
And that is wonderful. Although moving to hospitality business, you don't find too many women. It's a kind of, we talk about, somehow a club boys, one of the
Yes.
few jobs enclaves where the males are in big numbers.
Yes.
How did you enter this business? Was it difficult? Which were the difficulties as a woman, as an entrepreneur, you had to basically deal with?
Yeah, indeed, hospitality, especially when we talk about hospitality, it's not only restaurants but hotels, right? But hospitality, some numbers that are very interesting is that in the United States, 58% of the workforce in hospitality it's women-based, which I was looking the other day, how does that break down, right? When we look at those numbers, unfortunately, over 38% are on the lower bottom. On the lower bottom, low income, fast food chains. There are a lot of women that work on diners, waiters.
Working mom, basically.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I believe it entered the workforce for its flexible hours, right? Because women also have the many duties most of the time of the kids at home, so career, it's not always the first choice for women. Then when we move on to a more middle class restaurants and then the fine dinings, you see less and less women climbing that corporate ladder, right? Right now, there is about 15 to 17% of women in fine dining. And if you break that down, most of them are in the front of the house. In the back of the house is still a boys' club. And of
Which
course,
is the kitchen, basically.
Exactly, is the kitchen. There are long hours. A lot of girls tend to go towards pastry stations or nutritionists or work in the finance part of the business or in the front of the house, maître d' sommelier.
And hours matters because
Hours
basically
matters.
you say long hours. Indeed, you are a mother of two beautiful kids, Eduardo and Sofia. How do you manage to be director of operation, businesswoman, and a mother of two?
Well, one of the reasons I think that this combination worked is because both of us are in the same business. Because it will be very, very difficult if one of us will have a 9-to-5 job and the other one will stay in the restaurant business. And you have to remember, when you're in the restaurant business, you're in the service industry, Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, which we had a couple of days ago, you're working. You're working. People are there having fun, celebrating anniversaries, and we're working. So it will be very difficult. So I think one key aspect that we succeeded in this relationship, not only in the family relationship, but also in the partner and the business, is that because both of us are in the same. And the kids, they were always invited
around
to the world. They grew up. I remember when the kids were little, they will come after school and they will hang out at the office with me.
Do the homework there.
And doing the homework there, and eventually go to sleep wrapped in tablecloth.
Oh, but are they taking over your business, or
We
they
don't
are
know yet. It's too soon. It's too soon. But our oldest son, Eduardo, he worked actually with us in the company. He does our social media. He participated in some events as well. So slowly but surely, he's looking at how can he incorporate that, hospitality in his life. But it's too soon. But it's too soon to know.
Paula, your life, at least as one part, turn around fashion, beauty, sophistication, grace, all this quality that basically people that here in fashion, in FIT, embrace. How do you translate this quality into the hospitality business? Did it help you, or you had to redo yourself?
No.
Retool yourself?
Well, I think we always reinventing ourselves, right? And if you're not reinventing ourselves, you're just stuck in time. So you really have to reinvent yourself all the time and educate yourself. But
was it difficult? Was you traumatic?
No, absolutely. I think it took a very organic path if I may say. I was always intrigued and fascinated about all things aesthetically. It can be, interior design, fashion, theater, and the hospitality is a form of art.
Absolutely, but also the hospitality, it's especially in the city, it's suffering a lot because the cost of real estate, the cost of pandemic is still a business. Mostly, it's considered a business for immigrants, both in the medium, lower, but at the top level is different. It's still a career that is rewarding, or it's more and more difficult?
I think it's rewarding if you believe in it. Anything is rewarding if you believe in it. Can you become rich in the hospitality? That's to be seen. But it's rewarding.
Did you become rich?
No. Okay. Only personal, only inside. I'm rich inside. But it's a fascinating career. But you have to love what you do. There are long hours, as we mentioned before.
On your logo, you have the written, passion is the main ingredient.
It's our main ingredient.
It's enough basically to feed people and to make them satisfied?
If you put passion, I think is plenty. And when I say put passion, it's not only, why people go out to eat? It's not only about the food. The food, it's the number one reason, of course, and I love our chefs and what they create. But I think also people look for the ambience, for the silverware, the flatware, the hospitality, the lights, the music, the colors around you, the flowers on the table. So,
but because you also take care of the flowers.
Yes. So you have to think, how would you treat your friends if they come to your dining room? If they come to your living room, right? And this is the way that we treat every single person that walks into the restaurant.
Considering the two aspects, the business and the passion, the hospitality, which is the main quality that you basically look into a person that he comes to you or she comes to you and says, listen, I want to enter that world. What do you give? What suggestion? What tips do you give her?
Well, when someone comes and interview with us in any position, it can be a dishwasher, it can be a pastry assistant, it can be a hostess or a manager. The first thing I look is for the passion and for the hospitality, because there is a difference between hospitality and service. We can teach service. We can teach you how to pour a glass of wine, how to describe a dish, right? How to enter data on open table. We can teach you that. But the hospitality, if you have it, you have it. If you don't have it, it's very difficult. We always look for that quality first.
Can you learn that? Where do you learn this attitude towards in the family, in school, or something that?
I think in the school of life.
In the school of life.
I think in the school of life, I had very, very strong values from my parents. Very strong values. A family of immigrants. They always value hard work, always, and honesty. So I think I've learned, I have the base with them, but also all these years, the School of Life is the best school.
And did the condition of immigrants, did they help you? Did they give you a kind of a stronger motivation? Or did you perceive yourself in a different way? I had to work more to achieve something else?
I think immigrants usually have that mentality that you have to work more to be recognized, right? We have also pointed out that New York is a city of immigrants. There are so many immigrants, and this is like in the workforce, it's a very strong backbone of the city. So I think a little bit of both. It made me work harder to basically prove myself, but I also felt very much welcome in the city because there are so many. It's a wonderful diversity going on in New York.
Great. Paula, which is basic now next project you are working? Well, we just exiting pandemic, for sure. I know you have something in mind. Which is your next project, if you want to tell us?
Yes, absolutely. First, I have to point it out that the pandemic in the time that we were closed, we excuse me, we used that time to update it ourselves, to upgrade it ourselves in all senses. So in education, in software, learning new tricks, updating the restaurants, teaching ourselves new skills. So we did not stop in time. The next project, of course, is the reopening of Mozzarella Vino, which I am...
Will be expanded, no?
The expansion of Mozzarella Vino, exactly. Mozzarella Vino closed in the beginning of the pandemic. Then on that very same time, the landlord asked us the space back for a building-wide renovation, which is taking place right now. And with that, Mozzarella Vino will gain a second floor, so we can expand as well our catering division on that side.
Wonderful.
So we're very much looking forward to the reopening.
Paula, you're also very involved with the GI, Gruppo Italiano, Importatori, Ristoratori, Distributori, which is this fantastic cultural, philanthropic, not-for-profit. Please tell us why did you start? Actually, why did you restart it? It was started years ago by the famous Tony May from San Domenico.
Exactly.
You and Gianfranco with other people to reactivate.
Yes.
How is it doing now, and why you basically decide to reactivate the GI group?
The core concept of GRI, which used to be called, was to promote the Italian products in the United States, right? That was stopped a few years ago, and nobody took that lead to continue with its concept. Then Gianfranco, which is a wonderful promoter of Italian culture in New York, we were talking and we decided to revamp GRI and included also importers, not only importers, but producers, distributors, and restaurants. So GI basically took a turn on education. So our main goal is not only to promote the best of Italian products and culture, but to educate the new generation about it. So we do courses at the NYU and the Food and Financial High School. For kids, we bring chefs and we educate them as much as we can.
Terrific. Let's talk at the moment for the Italian food industry. How is the situation overall in New York City, in the 5 boroughs of the Italian restaurant business? It's basically the moment it's almost fading, or it's coming back in a new way. What is your take on this situation?
No, I don't think it's fading. I think it will be always a market for good food, and especially authentic food done with passion. And with Italian, I mean, you can get better than Italian food, of course, and products. I think the new generation is revamping the face of Italian restaurants. With the departure of the baby boomers in the industry, let's say, the new generation are opening venues that are based on quality. They are more simple, but let's not mistake simplicity for less quality. They're more casual settings. They're not the fine dining white tablecloth, but still they have great products. So I think I see a brilliant future for the Italian restaurant scene.
Wonderful. Paula, which is as a director of operation and as a partner, which is the greatest compliment you received from a customer, if you tell us who did that to you?
Well, the greatest compliment really, it's when a person leaves our restaurant in great spirits. That's the greatest compliment. When we genuinely make someone happy to be there. So for me, that's the greatest compliment.
Well, that's is a very great recipe ingredient for success. I have to say thank you, Paula. It was an outstanding conversation.
My pleasure,
if
always.
I miss something, feel free to add because you are open, but I I wish you all the best, and
Thank you very much.
to your family and the business, and we hope to have you again here in a different setting and a different topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.